What do you think are some key strategic changes we can make in our built environment to make Phoenix a great city?
We have a lot of empty properties right now, and these empty properties are very much driven by the opportunistic optimism of the lot next door to the empty lot that has zoning for a 30-story building. Okay, and I don't know that downtown Phoenix really needs a lot more 30-story buildings potentially. Might need a few, need a few signatures, that's fine. But I think what Phoenix really needs is a lot of buildings that are basically at 5 to 6 stories, which offers the density, for example, of a place like Paris or Brooklyn. I mean, it's the density of good urban living. Had Phoenix had better brick, a stronger structural brick when it started its foundation, the city would look more like the 5 and 6 story downtowns of places like Denver and Minneapolis and Boise and El Paso, Texas even, but we didn't have good brick. And so consequently, there were a lot of one-story structures, and then by the time the energy of the city got going, the automobile was king. The city was very much driven not by the altruism of mass transit, but in 1921, when there were 14 streetcar lines in town, a lot of them didn't even match in the gauge of their track, and they were all individual delivery systems to new subdivisions or developments within the reach of downtown. So right now, we have this very sprawling city. We have a 300-foot grid of a city rather than the 200-foot plus of cities like Portland, Oregon, or I think Billings, Montana, original Old Town Billings, Montana. But you know, we don't have that scale. So if we could develop some really interesting mid-rise housing, mid-rise being 5 to 6 levels. I mean, the rooftop of sitting in this room, for example, we're about 65 feet above the ground, and that would be a 6-story building, potentially 6 to 7, and it's an amazing view. Right now I live in Midtown on Central Avenue in a repurposed 1974 office building, and we're on the 6th floor, and yet we see the world. And that sort of density along Central Avenue and at some of the village cores to get a really great balance of housing along with workforce, attainable housing. You get the proper grocery store, everything sort of becomes very efficient. And then whether it be by light rail or by streetcar, bicycle or foot, we've connected something. I think that part of what we can look at in Phoenix, which seems like really strange thinking, is that without an automobile, can we create a 20-minute city? The 20-minute city is by foot, by bicycle, by bus, by streetcar, by transit. Within 20 minutes, we can get all of the things we need to live a reasonable life. So that includes entertainment, includes food, a trip to the hardware store, the grocery store, the laundry, the dry cleaner, you know, a movie, a library. And when you look at 20-minute environments, this is much more common in older cities because they were crafted before the automobile. But I believe there is a way to look at the city of Phoenix and the surrounds. And if we zone for thinking of that quality along with a form-based model rather than a use model for zoning, we could really change how we perceive our city. And it's happening organically, but it's not happening quickly enough. You know, so as we look at various neighborhood centers, for example, entrepreneurial as it might be, there is a wonderful buzz around 40th and Campbell, the LGO phenom, right? We're seeing that start to happen all over town. I mean, over at Roosevelt, I mean, we have the Arts District between 7th Street and 7th Avenue, a real richness within that 20-minute walk. And it would take you about 20 minutes to walk from 7th Avenue to 7th Street. So that's what the 20-minute city looks like, okay? On a cooler day, I would have walked here probably in 20 minutes plus from where I live on Osborne. So it's about the ability to walk about 2 miles, and if you put yourself on a bus, it's amazing the range you get, and you get even farther on a bicycle. So that's all good stuff. So those are things maybe that we can think about as citizens of this community wanting to make it a better place, and that comes along with shade. So it's talking about the streetscape. I think in the central part of the city there has to be a conversation about the historic nature of the tree in the contemporary city of the late 19th century. Phoenix was known as a city of trees. And yes, arid has its point, and xeriscape, and I love Paula Brea trees, and I love the lacy filtered light of a mesquite tree, but there is already a sort of balance as we look at Heat Island that talks about the Arizona ash, the trees that really give the kind of change up of shade seriously to the scale of the city.
Right.
Okay, Dan Hoffman a couple of years ago in his form-based study along with Harvey Bryan in the environmental field did a total look at downtown Central Phoenix from virtually McDowell to Lincoln from 7th to 7th. And that report has to be dug up because it's been lost in the basement of City Hall rather than being on the top shelf of the mayor's office. And as we look at our new mayor's election, we should really be thinking about those sort of issues.
Right.